Hey there, it's Marley Major. Before we dig in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell because you definitely don't want to miss another glorious disaster here on Every Day's a Train Wreck. Because missing an episode, now that would be a train wreck. Let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm your host, Marley Major, and I have the most, I think, coolest, amazing thing that we are going to deliver to you. Our first kind of reality show series. And what it's going to be about is about our new client, Ashley, who is a newly engaged bride who is from Southern California. I've known her for many years, and she's going to tell you all about her story. But she is living in London. She's in the finance industry, and she is planning a wedding in London. And the wedding is a little over a year away. And so what we're doing is we're going to follow the whole journey of us planning with her, me going over there, checking out venues, flowers, all that kind of stuff. So here begins the beginning of the ride. So we will release an episode just about like once a month, probably. I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty popular. And it's kind of like our American Bride in London, like planning a wedding abroad without losing your mind. How do you do it? And can you do it? We will see, because obviously we don't know yet. So every month we'll talk to Ashley and I'll interview her. And then later we will actually have her fiance if he still agrees to do it. And what we want to do is make sure that you guys, the listeners, well, you can enjoy it just as like a series, like you'd watch any other show, or you can come up with all of our tips and tricks about what matters and what you need to consider. So if you're a bride yourself, or you know somebody who's about to get engaged, then guess what? You want to pass this on to them, because you're going to have all kinds of tips and tricks on how to do it properly. So, Ashley, welcome to the podcast. How goes?
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So, full disclosure, we are talking to you in London right now. This is our first episode. You are very brave to agree to do this, I think. Although I do think it's going to be tons of fun. But tell me, like, what are you thinking right now at the very beginning of this? Are you like, what am I doing, whether it's getting married in London or doing a podcast, or like, what's your state right now?
I say, well, the wedding is a little over a year away. And I think my fiance, Matt, and I I don't know, so far everything's been pretty seamless. And so
oh gosh.
when
Okay, yeah.
when I think about all of the steps we still have,
Yes.
it kind of you kind of step back and realize how many pieces have to come together to have a wedding.
Right.
So really glad to be doing it with you.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's just a big endeavor. And I think every bride has a vision, perhaps, but there's just a lot of pieces.
Yes, there are. Well, I was going to say, when you're talking about all the things that have to happen, I was like, well, that's kind of my problem. You just kind of get to do your homework assignments a little bit. But
Yeah.
okay, I love that. And I love the candor. And that's going to be the fun part, because, hey, let's face it, I always say that being an event planner is a little bit like therapy, right? Like sometimes your clients call and they're just in tears because something like really significant happened. Like they didn't get the XYZ venue or time or something that they wanted. Or sometimes they're in tears and you're like, I'm sorry, wait, why are you in tears again? Like I haven't, and that's just part of the journey. So I think it's going to be fun having everybody see what goes on behind the scenes. And hopefully for the other event planners out there and wedding planners, they can pass this on to their clients and say, hey, this is why we charge so much, because there is so much involved. And you and I were going over this, but since it is the first episode, what I want to do is we've storyboarded how this whole thing is going to go. So your wedding, tell everybody when, well, we're taping this right now in February 2026, and your wedding is in when?
May 2027.
Got it. So it feels so far away, but what I find is that like brides are planning it like with that kind of time, or it's really short for some reason. Like let's say it's their second wedding, and to set this up, this is your first wedding. And how old are you?
31.
And then how old is your fiance?
He is 29.
29. Okay. And have either of you been married before?
No.
Okay. Well, I thought I knew the answer to that, but I figured since also I'm friends with Ashley's mom, so this is going to be very entertaining. So I'm going to really have to watch my P's and Q's. But okay. So listeners, what we're going to do is we are at the moment breaking this down into a bunch of different phases. Now, I'm going to laugh probably, and so is Ashley, when we listen to the last episode of this series, in 2027, and we realize, hey, did we stick to our vision and our phases or not? But loosely, what we're going to do is, so phase one, which would start today, is going to be the yes and the vision. So we're going to talk to Ashley all about how he proposed, like why London, why are you in London, what are you scared about, like what are the non-negotiables versus like the stuff you don't care about, and so that people can kind of, if they're planning, they come up with like, what are the top 5 decisions that actually matter, at this point. And you and I have talked a lot about that, right? I kind of look at it as like an anchor tenant, like, and we'll talk about what that is in a minute, spoiler alert. And then if you've got Pinterest, how are you using it? And then how are you like kind of mentally digging in for this long engagement?
Yeah.
And then also part of the first phase is going to be like the vision, the budget, reality checks. And then we kind of then jump into phase 2, which is the venue and the core team. So finding the venue in another country, like how does that work? Kind of shortlisting the venues, cultural differences, that kind of stuff. And then hiring the planner, yours truly, Marley at the Party Goddess, the photographer, designer, like all that stuff that's going to come to play for the boots on the ground piece. And then phase 3, the design, guest experience, and travel, because you're going to have a relatively big wedding, which we will talk all about. But also, you've got a lot of people coming in from out of town, and Matt is a Brit, and you're an American, so that's going to be its own thing. And we'll jump into guest list drama, family politics, travel, hotel, destination, logistics, every planner's absolute favorite part of anything. And then phase 4, the groom. So if he agrees, then I think it's going to be amazing to get his feedback on like the proposal planning part, the ring decisions, like what he felt, like what surprised him the most, and kind of what his role is going to be in planning. And then are you doing any pre-wedding events? Like, are you doing a bachelor or bachelorette party? Do they do them there? What do they call them? I know the answer to that, but I love the name. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. And then the 5th phase is the final countdown. So we're going to do the 90-day sprint. So when it's 90 days out, which is so hard to believe from now, but we will be there before you know it. Like all the final payments, seating charts, timeline stress, like the whole emotional roller coaster, probably for both of us by that point. And then like what's keeping you up at night kind of at the end of it. And then the last phase is going to be like, okay, how'd the wedding go? And like, now what are you doing? Like, are you still living in London? I mean, are you still married a week after the wedding? That kind of thing. Did you go on a honeymoon? How come? What happened? And while we can like storyboard this and kind of script this out into all these phases, as you and I talked about, there'll be all kinds of real life things that happen along the road, right? Like, some vendor will maybe not be available. Maybe somebody is going to come in and say, hey, listen, I love this concept. I want to gift you free, whatever. And then that would take its own twist. So we're ready to jump in. And the cool part is we will get to do the wedding recap here together. And then maybe we'll even do some kind of fun add-ons. But I'm going to London. I don't even know if you know this yet. I think I've probably been talking to your moms about some of these dates more than you, but next month. And so that'll be fun. I'm going to pit stop after some other stuff I've got to do in Europe. And so we can face to face go through stuff and knock it out. So Ashley, are you ready?
Yeah.
Listeners, are you ready? Okay, let's go. So first tell us how he proposed, because that is what everybody, I mean, other than like, show me the ring, it's like, how did he propose? How did he do it? So take us back. First of all, how long ago was that?
December. So it's been about 2 months now, December 13th. And I guess the quick backstory too is, so I moved over to London in January of 2024, and we met shortly after I moved. And I think it was like a cute love story. We meet like our
how'd you meet? Okay, let's talk about how'd you meet.
We met on Hinge, the dating app. It took a while for us to actually, like, we matched, and it took us months to actually go out and get a drink. But
okay, wait, why? This is good stuff, like dating
We
in
were
the
both
modern
just,
world?
I think we were both just busy. I had just moved for work, so
Okay.
work was my priority and taking up most of my time.
Right.
And I think most girls who have used a dating app can attest to them being a bit frustrating at times. So
Yes.
you're a bit reluctant to sometimes go on the date, but I did. And our relationship took off pretty quickly after that. I think one of the benefits of living in London for those that are in the US is there's just, I mean, a flight to Italy, France is like an hour away.
Yeah.
So we definitely took advantage of that. We were traveling a lot, and he proposed in December, so nearly about 18 months after we had started dating, and proposed in Paris. We took the Eurostar, which is the 2-hour train from London, on Friday night, and we checked into lovely hotel with a terrace overlooking the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, shut up.
And I think I knew from that moment that this was not just a normal trip for us.
Now,
We
wait,
travel all the time.
you
So
knew when you got on the train, or you knew when you were like in the hotel and like, oh, there's a balcony with the Eiffel Tower?
I had a hunch because I think we had talked about engagement, and we travel all the time, and we usually plan our trips together. And he was like, I've got this one. I planned it. I booked everything. He didn't tell me where we were staying, or like, we love fun restaurants. I didn't know where we were eating. I knew nothing. So I had a hunch. And then when I kind of saw the terrace and the view, I had a bigger hunch. But I think there's a thing too where you don't want to look for clues. You kind of want to respect the surprise of it. So
Right.
I kind of just let the weekend unfold. I think the other thing is he wanted it to, even though it was, by the Eiffel Tower and in Paris, which was picturesque. I think he didn't want it to be staged, or he wanted it to be a really private moment. So he proposed on the balcony. Oh, I guess backstory. So we were out shopping, walking around Paris. We came back. It was dark. He said, why don't we go up to the terrace? There were some candles, a few candles set out, and a bottle of champagne, and then he proposed.
Did he get down on one knee?
He did get down on one knee, and it was really special. There was no one else there. We didn't have any photos of that moment, but he arranged we have a friend who lives in Paris who knew a photographer, and we took a lot of like our engagement photos the next day, kind of running around Paris, which was really fun.
And one note on that, I have to tell you, I don't know because we have not talked yet about who your photographer is going to be, but I'm telling you, those photos are amazing. And I am psychotic about photographers because it is not easy. But are you considering that photographer for?
We are.
You are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yay. And it's a guy, right? Is he? And he's in Paris?
He's in Paris, but I think, the trains, we could train him.
Yeah, easy. Okay. Well, the reason I'm saying that is because when I go to London to meet you, I think we should tell him that he's not allowed to leave Paris and that we have to go to Paris to see him, just like, it is native like environment, like a lion or something, because I haven't been to Paris in a while, and I think that would be just magic for us. Okay. So anyway, more on the photos later. And what we'll try to do is sort of splice them into this so that people who are going to watch this visually, and I encourage all of you to go to our YouTube channel at The Prophet Goddess and look at it, because then you can see Ashley, you can see the photos and stuff that we're going to interject. But okay, so you had this photographer, and I think it was genius because I love the fact that when he proposed was private for you two, but the next day you had all the photos, and it really felt like it brought everybody along kind of with the journey, right? Because everybody's excited. And so you had, and then are all the photos in black and white or just ones I saw?
No, we got the black and white one. We got a mix back, and then we did love the black and whites, but we wanted them in color too. So all the black and whites we also have in color.
Okay. Pretty amazing. All right. So Matt so far is, he's a 12 out of 10 as far as planning this. That's why we're going to have to get him on sooner rather than later. Okay. So you do all these photos in Paris, and then what?
We came back on Sunday night. He had planned, my parents are in California, and it was around Christmas time. So my parents were planning to come for Christmas, but he arranged a dinner with both of our parents, his sister, to celebrate on Monday night. And my dad surprised me and flew in a few days early, which was special. Yeah. So that was really nice. And yeah, I think it's just one of the challenges is living in London with my parents in California is I wanted to make sure I got to celebrate all these special moments with them. So we definitely made sure that that happened, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing because it's rough. I mean, being the mother of the bride and your mom is here in California and it's like all we want to do is like quit our jobs and go there and, plan Ashley's wedding. Of course, that's not completely practical. But that was really, really sweet of him to consider that. And you're an only child. So this is even more like a big deal. So don't worry. On that note, I'm going to very much help you. We're going to keep your mom calm, cool, collected, and cheerfully involved. How's that?
Sounds great.
Okay. So then now, why did you decide to do it in London? Because obviously you're living there, and I should say you haven't signed the contract yet. So technically, I mean, we talked also about the Cotswolds and which is of course magical and getting a lot of airtime these days, since Ellen DeGeneres and it seems like everybody under the sun is moving to the Cotswolds. And then of course we've got the Beckham drama, et cetera. But kind of walk us through that part about why are you still kind of thinking of the Cotswolds and versus London and some of those conversations that you and I have had early on going back and forth about like, what are the pros and cons going to be?
Yeah, definitely. So I think first we did consider California briefly. I think I've always loved Santa Barbara and Montecito, and there's so many lovely venues there. The challenge I think is most of my friends are now in New York or on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And all of Matt's family and friends are in London. And having gone to a few kind of destination weddings or weddings where a lot of people are having to travel, it's great. But I think we didn't want that for our guests. I think proximity was one of the big ones, or just make ease of travel. Like my guests are either going to travel 5 hours east or 5 hours west, and then all of his guests would have to travel 10 hours west if we did in California. So that was kind of the rationale on Europe. We had, I think originally we were like maybe Tuscany or Tuscany is where our first trip together was in Tuscany, and we had a really nice time. I think the challenge with that is a lot of the hotels there, usually a lot of your guests will stay at the hotel or venue. Yeah. But then you have other guests staying at nearby hotels, which are all pretty small. Yeah. And taxis in Tuscany are notoriously astronomical. Yeah. And I think busing people around just sounded like a logistical nightmare, to be honest. And then I think a lot of Americans will have to take a plane or a flight another. It just sounded like a lot of trouble. Right. And I think for context, we're thinking, a larger wedding. Like, I think before we even thought about where we're going to have it, we're like, we just want this to be a really fun weekend for the both of us. And we want our guests to walk away and be like, that was an amazing celebration or party.
And so how big are you thinking that the guest list is going to be?
150 to 200, I think, is where we're probably. So it's not huge, but
it's big. Yeah.
Big enough that I think a small venue in Tuscany would have been tough. We'd consider Paris, but I mean, we just got engaged there. I don't think it's a place that we have ties to beyond that. Yeah. And we didn't want to just pick it just because. So then we came to London. I think I've always envisioned an outdoor wedding. And so the Cotswolds was my initial, I envisioned kind of a countryside estate or manor. Yeah. And I thought, there could be a fun flow of events from the welcome party to your wedding day to the goodbye party or breakfast on Sunday, with some people staying at the estate and others nearby. I think the challenge with the Cotswolds, and we also looked at some hotels in Hampshire, which is another beautiful area, which is even closer than the Cotswolds. Cotswolds is about 2-hour drive, 1.5-hour train from London, versus Hampshire is about a 1-hour drive. So a little bit easier for guests to get to and equally beautiful. I think there's so many amazing options out there, but I think a few of the reasons we decided not to do it were, one, getting there is harder than you would think. Like the train, even if you take the train, which is pretty seamless, you have to call. There's no Uber. You're calling a cab. Right. The cab's picking you up from the station. The hotels, most of the ones we were looking at, couldn't sleep more than 30, max 40. So a lot of our guests would have to stay at nearby hotels, which were anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. Just because it's so spread out there. There aren't a bunch of hotels concentrated in a small area. Yeah. And the idea of having, like, I would hate for, 20 guests to be MIA for the ceremony because they
Right.
couldn't catch a cab. And even if you wanted to provide buses for your guests,
Right.
they're probably going to be staying across 4 to 5 hotels.
Yeah.
So I think it just sounded like logistically stressful. There was one manor in the Cotswolds where The Holiday was filmed. There's like the scene when they get lunch and then are in
Yep.
the garden. And I thought that was kind of a cute, like, I'm from California, he's from London. I
Yeah.
thought it
Yeah.
was kind of a cute cosplay on the movie. But
Maybe we can do something
then,
about that. Maybe we can recreate that for the rehearsal dinner or something. Maybe that can be
or I
the
was
theme for the
thinking we
rehearsal
could
dinner.
take photos out there or
Yeah.
something. I
I
don't
love
know if we
that.
need to have our wedding there, but I think when I got kind of all of the Cotswolds venues sent me their stuff, I think it's like the idea of getting a marquee or a tent. And then
Yeah.
a lot of them were saying because it's on grass and then the countryside, it's hilly. So you need to,
Yeah.
support the ground and then flooring and then
Yeah.
you need bathrooms and to build a kitchen. And when you, like, some of the quotes we saw for vent marquees were just like, it's insane price wise. And I'd rather, I think, spend that elsewhere. And I
Right.
think, again, staying, like, I get when Matt and I thought about what we want this weekend to be, and it just being a really big party and people to walk away with, that was like one of the best, most lively wedding or, fun weddings.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in the Cotswolds. If anything, like, if it's a rainy day and people are going to have to use an umbrella to get from the marquee to the
Right.
porta potties in the corner, like, that just doesn't sound
Yeah.
pleasant at all.
Yes.
So I think, so we looked at a lot of London venues. They range from hotels to museums to gardens. And
what were the different, because you and I, one of them that you and I talked about is like this indoor garden. And you're mentioning too that, it's humid. There are plants in there. There are plants that they do not want to die. It's a greenhouse. And I think the difference too, sometimes, like, I mean, I think we have regular listeners on the podcast or to the podcast that are in 68 countries. So they are like all over the place. So we're not just talking to an American audience, but if you're in LA or you're in New York, our rental companies here are very used to, you do the subfloors and you have the tents and and it's just kind of like this production factory of that kind of stuff. But in Europe and out, it is not necessarily that way, even let's say in the big cities, but like, especially outside in the Cotswolds, you're right. Like in California, they probably would have, like, flattened it all out in order to maximize their wedding capacity for every Saturday. But, they're not going to do that there. It's genuinely hilly, and that's why it's beautiful. And the cost to make something look just gardeny and effortless are so high. I don't think people realize how much, like, logistics and weather, especially in a place like that, really affects things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from the cost perspective too, like, the other consideration is a lot of, like, if you go through a hotel in London or a museum or whatever, you might think it's central London, it's more expensive. It might be cheaper to have it in a garden.
Right.
But the labor and all of, like, getting people out to the Cotswolds, putting accommodations for your staff, like, it adds up very quickly. And to us, we just weren't willing to kind of pay that premium when there's so many other great options in London.
Well, that's the other thing too, that just from the practical planning perspective, like, when you do a destination wedding, like, even if it's a destination, you hire, let's say, a planner in, LA, and then you're doing it in Montecito or something. And, our team spends the night. It's not like there aren't great planners in Montecito, but let's say you've got the connection to us and you did it in Montecito. Then what a lot of people forget is that the client is responsible for our team. And if we're doing the decor and the design, and let's say we've got to get into that venue. I mean, we did a huge job for a regular client in Palm Springs, and, the whole team is out there for probably 5 days doing all the installation and decor. And you have got the whole team plus me, plus the coordinators out there. It's the hotels, it's the meals, it's the gas, all that kind of stuff is the client's responsibility. So if somebody's listening to this and planning a destination wedding, just keep that in mind, that yes, you are paying the person's plane ticket to go do it in Tuscany or wherever it, if you're like, oh, we're going to fly the London planner in to do this in the Bahamas. Well, you're going to fly the London planner and however many people she needs to execute that to the Bahamas. So how did you, one thing, because I think the museums and stuff are so beautiful there. What made you decide kind of not to go with a museum? I kind of get why you didn't go with the greenhouse, but why
Yeah.
why not a museum?
Before I even started looking at venues, I kind of had a vision of what I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, it was less of, I want it to be the hotel versus a museum, and more around what venue kind of has that feel.
Right.
And I think the venue that we're looking to choose kind of really, I walked in and I was like, yes, this is the lighting, the light fixtures, the staff, the decor, the kind of the flow into the reception and then to the ballroom. I loved the color palette. I think the other thing is I didn't want to choose a place where we were going to have to, really do a lot of decor and florals. Right. I wanted the venue to be naturally beautiful, which museums are. So that is
I get it. No,
totally
I get what you're
fair.
saying. I get what you're saying.
But I think there was something about the hotel that it just had a beautiful, like there's probably, the venue or dinner dance will be in a ballroom. So that will need some work because all ballrooms are a bit plain by nature. But I think just loved the feel of it. I think there are so many. The other thing with the museums is there's like one of the like Natural History Museum, for example, has like a giant whale stretched across the ceiling, which is like a huge wow factor.
Right.
And I think Matt, my fiance, had been to a wedding there and loved it.
Yeah.
So if one of his friends had done something there, so we didn't want to do that. But, so everything comes with, I think for me, it was just the whale wasn't quite part of the vision.
Like maybe if you got engaged in Nantucket, right? Or perhaps, yes, if you got, I get it. Then, and then, yours truly would have made the whale like the big center focal point. That sounds kind of fabulous, but you're right. Yeah. You have to work with that. And that's the other practical thing that people have to realize is they can be like, oh, the carpet, or they might even think the carpet's kind of fine, but carpet in hotels is usually patterned and it's patterned for a reason. So it doesn't show every stain. Well, then what happens a lot of times is we end up recarpeting for the event, just, in cream color carpet or something neutral. And then you're like, okay, great. Now is there wallpaper? What do the drapes look like? Like you end up kind of rebuilding these rooms. So that was a very, very smart decision of yours. And we're not going to exactly say, since we haven't signed the contract and, it's not totally set in stone, we don't want to say exactly where it is, but those are very important things to take into consideration, that you liked the bones of the venue just totally on its own without, without feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got to repaint it and change it into something that it's not.
Yeah. I think the other thing that we really liked was, what was important to me was most of my guests are coming from the US, and I wanted it, since we aren't doing it like in the Cotswolds, most people have probably been to London.
Yeah.
I wanted it to really be like, let's embrace the London wedding and pick a venue that really feels like London.
Right.
And I want the photos to kind of have that kind of timeless, traditional London look to them at the venue.
Like a cheesy reference would be like, the double-decker bus, like magnet on the fridge, but we want a classed up version of that. So it's because there are so many iconic like photo ops and everything there that that's going to be magical. Now, what would you say, like, does anything scare you about planning abroad or no?
I would say London is home for me now. Yeah. So I've been here for 2 years. I I think even just the way that people communicate over email or phone is a little bit different. But I think because I'm familiar with that, I'm used to it.
Give us some examples.
I don't want to be negative, but sometimes there's a slightly, like I think in the US, people are like super proactive. Like if there's an issue or something doesn't work, they're like, here's 5 solutions or here's a way around it.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's kind of like, this is what it is. And so I think you just learned like how to communicate with people, like if you want to make tweaks or changes, and
got it.
You just kind of, if that makes sense. So
you can't sit back and let it get solved. You've got to be the one saying, okay, great. Well, let's have you fix this on Tuesday.
Yeah. Or it's just kind of like, let's not just identify problems. Let's like create solutions around them. Because I think in a wedding situation, you could be like, oh my God, this could be a huge problem. Like,
right.
Yeah. But other than that, I think the only thing that is to consider is the strength of the US dollar. I think if you're planning a wedding abroad, if the strength of the dollar changes while you're planning, obviously, if you're paying and, like that's something to consider, especially right now where the dollar is moving quite a bit.
Yep. And that's significant because you might, your parents' money is what's funding it, right? And so it's they're making their money in the US. So that's a big consideration. And that's also a big consideration too, as far as like locking down contracts and proposals. And it's definitely something to consider. And then the VAT taxes and things that are just different pricing structures for us, right? Like I can look at a contract, in the US, like in my sleep while I'm getting my nails done and my eyelashes done and be like, okay, that's a red flag. Like, okay, let's negotiate this, whatever. But when you're planning stuff abroad, there are just, the laws are totally different. The customs are totally different. And you've got to pay attention to how that's all going to work. So next question is, do you have a Pinterest board?
I do. I do have a Pinterest board.
And how, excuse the pun, but I have to do it. How married to the Pinterest board are you?
I think it's more for inspiration. Like specifically when I don't have an idea of what I want and I just want to see purely inspiration. I would say like florals, or because I think the other thing is some things I'm like, I have an idea of what I want, but I would like some specifics to share with you.
Yeah.
So I think it's great for stuff like that, table settings or place cards or florals, or like one thing I searched recently was like ballroom wedding. And I'm like, do not want that. Do not want that.
Oh, so good.
It's very helpful, I think.
What would be fun? And we can talk about this offline because I just got the idea and I realize I'm putting you on the spot is maybe that we do create a Pinterest board for your wedding. So like we have a gazillion pins on our, at the Party Goddess board on Pinterest that, I use that. That's like how Pinterest for me is how I think, like as a planner, like we do TV segments on, 5 tips for throwing a great Easter brunch or whatever it is. And we just, whether it's even just photos from our phones or whatever, we just throw the mud on the wall in these and use the boards as just to categorize things. But I think that would be fun for people to see, like the evolution of your board. Right. Yeah. And so just as I say, you can have maybe, one that's just yours and then one that you duplicate for the two of us or more for public consumption. But I do think that clients don't realize sometimes how there's such a pattern, right? And it is so obvious, like, back in the day, because I've been at this for so long, I would say to clients, like, even tear up magazine pages or anything like, or I'd send them to the paint store, because sometimes the paint store, I don't know why, is really easy to see colors and see them together because you can see all the different shades. And of course, everybody's different. Obviously you can do it on the computer and you can do it in 5 seconds. But to me, I sometimes like tactile things. But what's interesting is you might not see a pattern, but you're going to put stuff on Pinterest. And to me, it's going to be like, wow, Ashley really loves apricot colored peonies or apricot colored something, because there's so many repetitive elements or colors that show up that I don't think you can't see the label from inside the jar. Like if you're the bride or you're the client, but then the planner can see it and say, do you realize that kind of everything has black and white stripes or something like that? So tell us a little bit about your negotiables versus your non-negotiables. Like what are the things that you're just like, I have to have? And we talked about that a little bit in terms of logistics, but then what about the pieces of that's not that big a deal?
Yeah. I think, I really want a fabulous dress.
Yeah.
So that's one. Great venue. and then great band.
Yep.
I probably don't like the food. I want it to be good.
Yeah.
But do I want you to remember the meal? I don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care about the cake.
Yeah.
Nat has a nut allergy and I have a gluten and dairy intolerance, so I don't think
well, plus everybody else there will be on Ozempic, so it won't matter. So that's smart these days. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, and the venues that you're looking at though are going to have it. I mean, that's going to kind of be a given, but that's really important to underscore is as a planner, even if you're just a friend helping another friend, plan their wedding or plan an event, like no matter how much money my clients might have, it's like they're not going to spend it all, right? On even if people have it, they're just things that are like, that's not that big a deal to me.
Right.
And it's really important to identify, because especially down the planning process, when the budget just starts expanding and doubling and it's like, sort of bread rising, you want to be able to say, okay, I mean, I can cut back a little bit on that.
Yeah.
And, instead of doing, or, you can have the giant cake or you can have the symbolic cake for the photos with a dessert bar or all these different interactive stations. And so there are all kinds of different ways to do it depending on what's, most important. I mean, I would like to just put my face in the cake and have every flavor because I'm not on Ozempic, although I should be. So what else, anything else that's kind of a must have versus not that big a deal?
I do want there to be like good wine and champagne. Does it need to be from this winery in this region? No, but I do want it to be good. Matt and I both really enjoy wine.
Yeah.
So I think that's just more of well, if we both enjoy it, we should have good wine at our wedding.
Absolutely.
What else? I think good photographer is really important to me.
That's huge.
I don't think they need a videographer. It's the kind of thing where you might watch the video a few times, and of course it's fun to share with people, but I think for me, photos are probably more important.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll probably want 2 photographers just because we want to capture everything. I think that's like most of it.
Well, we
want to have a really fun after party too.
Yes. Well, this list, I can't wait to, let's say 6 months in after we've done many of these episodes and I come back to and go, remember Ashley, you said this wasn't that important or these were the only things that are important. You're going to be like, oh God. Okay. Well, I think we've gotten a really good feel for, part 1 of phase 1 about how this whole thing has gone down. Do you have anything you want to add about the beginning process or anything you want to tell brides maybe who are already engaged or ones that know it's coming soon? What would you say?
It's funny because I think Matt and I had talked about wanting a long engagement, which is partly why we got engaged and the wedding's not till May of next year.
Yeah.
And we both said we weren't going to start wedding planning until closer to the day.
Yeah.
But I think that changed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I think though part of that was we wanted to make sure we secured the venue and everything just so we had everything locked in. So hopefully once we get that done, we can actually stop planning for a little bit. But anyway, it's just surprised me how quickly we dived into wedding planning.
Yes. And you're supposed to say I kind of teed you up, not really, but that you couldn't do it without such an amazing planner, but that's okay. We'll practice that for the next episode. But well, Ashley, this has been great. Thank you for being so honest and telling us like what's going on in your mind. And for our regular listeners, please make sure you comment and like even put questions about what you want me to ask Ashley on our next episode. But for everybody else, please make sure that you subscribe, you like, comment. Most importantly, though, that you find somebody who is planning their wedding or just loves a good kind of podcast reality show and share this episode with them because it's going to get very fun as the next one. Well, I'll be in London. Actually, it'll be a month and a half. So we'll have one more podcast before then we tape one, maybe even while I'm there. That would be really great. Maybe we'll just tape it in Paris where we chain the photographer because I need to go back to Paris. But anyway, that's that. So you guys, since we talked about Pinterest today, if you want to follow our Pinterest boards at The Party Goddess and follow us on Instagram at The Party Goddess and our YouTube channel at The Profit Goddess, check it out. Ashley, I can't thank you enough. And I know everybody's going to be very excited to hear what you have to say on the next one. So that's it. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
See you next week. Okay. Bye-bye.